don't know if it's to say the best way or the usual way of solving or addressing the problem, right? So it is very, very, very important for this class to be meaningful that you, if you say, I have no idea what this lady is talking about, right? Has no idea what this teacher is talking about. So stop me, okay? It is gonna be very complicated to follow up later on or to make any meaning if you got lost. So do we know what we are talking about? Okay? And what she did, okay? So let's say, how can I say this? Okay, so as we are doing a web application, right? So we are using essentially client-server architecture, right? So we have a client here, and we have a server here. What is more important is that we have client code here, okay? And we have server code here. The client code is the code running on the client. The server code is the code running on the server. That's the thing. Okay. So the client code that is running, it doesn't matter where the code is, but it's running on the client. The client in a web application is typically not only, but typically a browser. And this code is HTML plus JavaScript. Could be many other things, but basically that's what it is. And the server code, in fact, we are not server, we are serverless. It doesn't matter, there is a server somewhere. It just is not our server. Okay? That code is basically a bunch of, in our case, Java code, which are organized in Lambda function. Okay? Right. So this Lambda function, to address the problem that we are discussing, you told us that you have the names doesn't matter, right? I mean, it matters, but not Lambda upload object and Lambda insert row, right? This Lambda upload object basically deal with S3, and this Lambda insert row basically deal with RDS. Okay? And you basically your idea is to have kind of a workflow where you, let's say collect description, name, and content, which is done here, right? It's in the client code, right? Collect meaning you somehow need to get the, what is the new file that the user wants to upload, right? So you do it here, and you get your description, you get the name of the file, you get the content, right? So that's first. Then you go and say, I'm going to upload, and then you upload using the name and using the content. So it's going to be upload in S3. And that is done with this guy. And then you insert in RDS the name and the description. Actually, you don't use a name, you use a hash. It doesn't matter for now. Okay? The important thing is that these two guys are the same. Agree? Everybody? Yes? Now, the question for a software engineer, for a software architect, where do you implement that workflow? Right. That's the lambda entry point function is our trick to not to have other things, but it's written. The implementation of the workflow that you do this and then this and then this is in your client. Right? Agree? Okay. So that I will say solution number one, and then we will discuss why it's good, why it's bad, what other things we can do. Okay? So solution number one, and I'm glad that you did it, so I have things to talk about. So solution number one is that. Okay, again, I don't care about the hash. Okay, it just that's kind of a topping, right? Like in a just you just add topping, so it's just to improve the thing, but it's not the core of the matter. So first the workflow. So solution for the workflow, which is it's a real issue. Okay, in fact there's a whole service of AWS which deals where and how do you do this. Now, I looked at the service last week, and it's way too complicated. I mean, it's complicated in the sense that force us to change too many things on our lambda. So I'm not to explain the idea. I don't think we need it. So we are gonna do it our own way. Okay. But anyway, it's very important. So this is client. So first solution, you implement on the client. So basically you have your JavaScript, send a request. I don't know if you wait for the response or if you immediately send the other.
For the upload, like I just immediately send like the two processes of uploading to S3 and adding a row to Lambda separately.
So you do it, let's say parallel. Yes. You send the two requests.
Yes.
You don't wait for one to complete.
So like basically a row may be added, but the image may fail to
Correct.
upload.
So there are, of course, when you implement the workflow, we are not doing, I mean, at the beginning, because again, you do things through iteration. At the beginning, we are gonna do it without taking into consideration all the potential problems, including that, as you said, fail one but not the other. That's a problem if both are supposed to be in sync. Okay? But that workflow that you mentioned is not this one. The workflow that you mentioned is, if we think in terms of an activity diagram in UML, is more like this. It's more like that. Okay? And it's obviously the implementation is different. Right. So yes. So here in the workflow we had, when we implement the workflow, is it sequential? Is it parallel? What happened with the error? How do we handle the errors? I mean, there are issues, and there are many ways to do it, depending on the requirements. You have to do one or the other. So I'm not gonna. We'll talk about this later. Just to point out that what you implement is actually different, and that has consequences. But what I want to emphasize now is that you did it in the client. You did it in the client. Okay? Yes, everybody? Okay. Anybody else did it differently?
I do somehow the same method, but I do a lambda to invoke the two lambda function for upload and insert.
But that is different. If you did it that way, it's different from her. I mean, it's radically different. Because if what you did was, let me if I understand what you did, okay? If what you did was to, give me a second. Right, you have another lambda here.
Yes.
We say, let's say, lambda orchestrator. And this lambda called lambda upload object and lambda insert row. Right? And so in your solution, your JavaScript call this guy and call this guy. Right? So this is a function URL, this is a function URL, you have to. In your solution, if I understand correctly, you call this guy. So JavaScript only has one call. Different. Now, what do you do with these two? You call them as so this lambda is calling these two, right?
Yes.
It could do it, let's say in parallel, or it could wait for one to the other to finish.
It have to wait.
It had to wait. What do you mean it has to wait?
I haven't configured the code to.
Huh?
I haven't configured the code to do parallel. Like if invoking the two lambda, passing the parameter.
Yeah, but you don't. I mean, I don't know what you have done. We will look at the code now, but you don't have to do anything to make it quote parallel. It's two invocation. I don't know what you have done with the code, but I will. Okay, so do we understand the two different solutions already? One question. Do you have this guy called these two lambda, or this guy contain all the code of the two lambdas?
That guy to call on.
Call, invoke the lambda.
Yeah, invoke. Like how you do in lambda NP, or you invoke the get object. To
Yeah, you copy that code, yes. Yeah. Anybody has done anything different? Yeah.
I think one possible, another solution would be let the JavaScript call the lambda upload, and then the lambda upload call the lambda upload to the database.
Yeah. Yes. But this is the same. I mean, yes. Okay, no, it's not the same. So the third solution is fourth solution. Another solution is you take the lambda upload object code, then you modify to make inside that code an invocation to this one. So the client only call this guy, not the two.
But I think it's a bad solution.
Right? So that's a third solution, right? So the second solution is server, nothing the client is the server, and then you have like a lambda orchestrator, which now call the other lambda. Or third solution is also server side, and then you basically modify the, let's say, first activity in the workflow, the first lambda, which you just make it just that lambda contain everything, right? which one do you think is better and why? You are software engineering. You have to, the boss pay you. So you have to have an idea about this. You have to reason. You have to say this is good or bad. I will do this or that. There are no, I mean, as I said before, it basically depends most of the time on the requirements. Although there are certain things that are better than others in all circumstances.
But I think that the second solution is the best since you can, there's the term reusability in software engineering where he doesn't need to recode the upload functions and upload to database function, and he can just add one more pre-processing steps, which is the orchestrator, which you can hash the file or the file name or something to create a key, and he can just plug in the two other code has already deployed on the cloud. So that's the
Always, the usability is a plus. So the solution of, you can do it, and I did it, to test things. The solution of adding code to an existing piece, code that it could perfectly well understood as something different. So resize is different from upload, right? So the third solution goes against modularity, and therefore goes against reusability, goes against ease of maintenance. You can do it, okay? It's gonna work. It is now, and you will pay the price, or someone else will pay the price at some point, okay? So that's with this, agree? Okay. So part of the work that you will do many, many times is looking at what you have done, and that's what we call refactor. And then you cannot look at what you have done and say, oops, yes, I did it, but you see, I could take this part and make it a component in itself so that I can reuse it. And so that I can make my kind of the original one easier to understand, because actually that part does not, it is not necessary when I'm doing these other things. So when I upload it in certain situations, I may not need to resize and upload in the resizer, right? But obviously, of course, when you decompose, then you need, and you want to do something with the parts that you have generated, then as you said, you will need something else which cannot orchestrate how that works. Okay? So every time you decompose, you need to glue the pieces together for, in the case you need all the pieces or part of the pieces to do something. How do you glue them? It's a different matter. Okay? So that's two with respect to 3. So 3 is not okay for most cases. Okay, you do it at the beginning. You do it the first time. You do it to get things running, but then you go back, refactor. The problem with many projects and many of the projects that you do in the university is that later on you never go back. You never have time to refactor. You never have time to actually review your code and make it better because you don't care. But in real life, you need to spend time refactoring, okay? And documenting and doing all these things because, right. Now, with respect to 1 and 2, what is preferable?
So like I'm gonna compare the advantages and disadvantages of the solution 1 and 2. So I think the advantage of solution 1 is that you don't need the Lambda orchestrator, which saves you some time because of the cold start nature of Lambda functions.
But we will solve this next week.
Yes.
So what you are saying is that, yes, Lambda take time to start. So then next week, if not today, depends how it goes, it's a simple trick, how to make the Lambda always warm, okay?
And so the disadvantage of solution 1 is that.
Okay, before you go to disadvantage, just keep in mind that you said, I save. So you say save time, but you say, I don't need to write the orchestrator. I don't need to implement the orchestrator. But that's not absolutely true, because actually there's no such a thing as a free lunch. So you don't do it in Java, you do it in JavaScript. So in a sense, the workflow is implemented somewhere, either on the client or in the server. Or, as we did last week, 2 or 3 weeks ago, within using the kind of the triggers, okay? But I will argue that that's not a good idea. So the orchestration is somewhere. Okay, so the advantage of, there is no, from the point of view of the code that you need to write, there is no clear advantage. Okay? What is the disadvantage?
It's just an advantage in the context that I haven't learned a better orchestration workflow.
Right. No. The disadvantage is, you think about it. And that's something that you need to make an effort, okay? Until now, you write client code, server code. So somehow you had the freedom to move things, as you did, from the server to the client, or the other way around. Because you are the developer both of the server side and the client side. When you write the client side, the server side, do not think about the client side. Do not. Because that's the actual reality. You have no idea when you are writing the server side, you are essentially writing the APIs, right? You have no idea who is going to call you or how it's going to call you. So this class, we are doing web services. And we had to do the server side, we write the APIs. The other class, mobile programming, we could easily use the same API, but now it's not from JavaScript, it's from Kotlin, and written by a different developer. So if the API, the logic of your application is such that when the object is uploaded on S3, then the row is inserted, you cannot leave that to the client. You cannot. You have to give the client an API that it does everything you want. You cannot tell the client, oh, by the way, if you use this API, so right now, if you think about what you have done, right now, let's say that your colleagues in the mobile programming class are going to develop an Android application to upload images in S3. Then you're going to tell them, hey, please, to upload, use this object, this lambda. But, and then you will say, but. Don't forget to, after that, call the lambda insert row. Otherwise, it's not gonna work the next API that you are gonna use, the one that cannot get the description out of that. Too much talking. And you have no guarantee that actually the developer is gonna follow what you said. No guarantee. So you don't do that, you don't. And again, it's a mental issue. Until now, we write server and client. So for us, it's like, well, I do it here, I do it there. Who cares? Yes. But in real life, it's not like that. Makes sense? Yes.
Just questions. I think it's quite out of scope for
Okay.
this.
If I can answer, I answer. If not, I will say I cannot.
Okay, so assuming we're using the second solution, and the requirement is to have
The orchestration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The requirement was to have data consistency for the database and the S3 bucket. Can
Yes.
we make that transactional, like in database, where one of the two must, that both of the services must complete successfully before it committed to the database, or else?
You are gonna do transactional. Sorry, do we know what I understand by transactional? What do you mean by transactional? You remember databases? I don't know if you did it, right? But for example, I don't know, did you program the store procedures when you in the class of databases?
I'm sorry.
No,
could you-
the store procedures. So, what you are asking, okay, it has to do with this. It has to do with how do we handle errors. Okay? When you are implementing a workflow, things can go wrong. So how do you recover from that? And that depends on the requirement.
So you're saying the three solution can be done?
No. I'm just saying, what you are asking, I mean, just to put everybody, what you are asking has to do with that, and I want to cover that, okay? So let me, so in SQL databases, most of them you have this thing called store procedures. Okay? You cannot study. So basically it's a language, okay? So in MySQL you are used to insert, select, whatever, right? But many times you have to do, for example, typical application that you have to, let's say, when you create a row in this table, then you must insert a row in that other table with the key that you have plus delete something else. How do you do that? Right? So if you just do it like calling, let's say, insert, then you call update, and then you call delete, right? 1, 2, 3. 3 different. But what happened is because suppose that if you cannot do this should not exist. You should not have the object there. But if you do it independently, well, you insert. Right? So when you want 3, 4, whatever number of things happen in your database, but it's a all or nothing. It's an all or nothing. Then you call this a transaction. So all these things has to happen in a transactional way. Okay? And there is a way on the databases, in the modern databases, where you say, my friend, I'm gonna send you a bunch of statements. Right, so if at any point there is an error, you roll back. Okay? Okay, any application, any application that you do with databases that is a bit more complicated than what you do in the school has that issue. Okay? Right. Now, how do you do that? How do you do that? You can do it. And it's kind of similar to the how do you do that? Where do you do that? It's similar to the problem that we are discussing. You can say, oh, I'm gonna do it in the database. you, for example, can use a store procedure. A store procedure is a function that is in a language that the database understands, where you can say, I'm going to do not just one thing, but a bunch of things with a certain logic. And if things go wrong, I do something different, right? So it's a whole language. So, but the point is, you do it on the database. Okay? Second, you do it at the application layer. So in Java, for example, you keep using the driver to send a statement, but you somehow keep track of the things that has been successful, so that you can kind of roll back. So if there was an insert, there's a delete. In case, nice, it's ugly, but you can do it. Okay? The reason why the databases have transaction is precisely to avoid that. Right. But the idea is, in principle, you can do it here or here. Yes? Right. So going back to your question. If I in solution number 2, right? This guy, okay? This guy can take care of the error handling under the assumption that you implement this, not in parallel. This is in parallel, well, in parallel yes, but then you have to wait, which is the same thing basically that doing one after the other. So not all. So in this specific case, right? It is not the case that, for example, let's suppose for a moment that you upload an object, and let's suppose for a moment that there's an error in the communication with the S3, and then you suddenly, or let's say that you make a mistake and you have the security policy that does not allow you to access the S3, but it allows you to insert in the ROM. So the first will fail, the second no. You are not satisfying the requirement of both need to be synchronized. So you need to, that's what I was saying, you need to take control of this. Now, that case is like you put all that logic in the client is forget it. Okay? It's like, no. So where do you put it? Well, the nice thing about the orchestrator is that you take care of that. You didn't take care of that one. It's okay for the first version, but not. Okay? Anybody else has done something? Have I more or less answered the question? Or no? Have I answered the question? Yeah.
I haven't done it yet, but it just came to mind.
Yes, please. Anything that comes to your mind. This is what we do in software engineering. We discuss solutions.
So in the AWS web page in the Lambda, we have a button for add trigger. So
yes.
I have a Lambda for upload object to S3 and a Lambda to insert new row to the table. So for example, if the requirement is if the image is successfully uploaded, insert a new row. If it's not, it's just unsuccessfully uploaded to S3, don't insert the new row. So I can go to the Lambda, insert new row, add a trigger for the S3 on object creation event, and save it. And then basically I don't have to do any other sort of code. The AWS will handle that.
Right. So one thing that, yes, and in fact we did that. When we did that, when? For the right? We did that. Right? Now, I'm gonna change that, and I'm gonna explain why. But before that, I repeat this many times, okay? And I'm sure you are tired of me saying this, but it's true. There is no such a thing as a free lunch. when you say, I don't need to code, someone needs to code. So when you say, I don't need to code, I put it on the trigger. You're right, but the trigger is code, which comes with its own limitation, which you do not control, because a different code, someone else. So do you remember? The trigger, okay, is here. Okay? The trigger. Do you remember what happened with the application? The first version of the application where we upload an object and then the object is uploaded and then the trigger is resized and put it in the resizer. What happened with our table? Where we have the thumbs, the small images, plus the name, plus the button. What happened with our table? Do you remember? Was it, okay, so we added, right?
Yeah.
And then automatically we got the new line, the new row in the table with the new object, right? But what happened with the image? The resized image appear or didn't appear?
It takes a while to.
It takes a while or it takes forever?
You have to manually reload it.
It takes forever. You have to manually reload it. So meaning the client need to manually reload it to get the image. That's how.
Because you re-render the list when you finish the post object and the trigger takes not trigger after that, so the function takes time.
How much time does the trigger take? You have no idea, and you should never be your code. You should never base your code on that information because it's out of your control. So what happened in the solution of the trigger, and that's the reason we are doing things a bit different now. What happened is that, that's the reason why you will change it now. What happened is that the trigger idea is you call, so basically the thing is right. Let's put it this way. Can you see? Yes. You have these three things, right? This calling to the lambda, keep in mind that it's a web service, meaning it's used HTTP, meaning it's based on request response. When the response is received, bye bye. There is no, you want something more, request again. Make sense? Right. So, yes? Right, so, you request, that's what we did. You say upload, and then you, based on using the trigger idea, this guy called this guy called this guy. And this guy does not wait. How could it wait? It's a trigger. This guy does not wait to return. So this guy say, I'm done, I've loaded. And then this guy go and get the new, go to the backend, get the list. And the new object is there, because it's there. But what happens when this trigger is triggered and when this trigger finishes? We have no idea. It could be before you call again, because after this, remember, we do a refresh. And refresh was calling all the get me the object. But we have no idea whether this happens after this has been completed or not. It is out of our control. Make sense? It is out of your control. So that's the reason this, and I was discussing that with Sanofi last week, for many applications is not a good idea. It's not a good idea for two things. First, because if you really need the user to see the success by looking at the thumbnail, you cannot guarantee. You have to tell the user, by the way, please press the button refresh. That's not nice. Second, once you put the trigger, unless you do a lot of programming at the trigger level, then not only you, anybody who put an object there will create the resize. You have no control. You make it forever. You can put some condition, you can do a lot of things. But, make sense? So, the lesson here is, and it's gonna happen when you work. I mean, you work now, but when you go to the real life. Sometimes you make decisions which simplify your task. There is no such a thing as a free lunch. Someone else is doing. If you don't know exactly what are the things that the other guy is doing, my advice, don't do it. You will pay the price. Because you don't know. And then at some point you thought that the guy is doing something, but he's doing something different. Or at some point you need something, but you don't have it because the guy has not asked. Okay? So this is what I wanted to talk. I mean, to understand what this is a problem, you need to remember HTTP request response. And there is nothing else. It's not requesting again. And please never, I mean, of course you can solve the problem of refreshing by every 5 seconds sending a request, but you will be fired. Okay, you do that and you are fired from your job. The senior developer will just fire you. Okay, that's, that's high school sort of programming competition level solution. Okay. Any question? Any question? Anybody has done anything different? Anybody has any other idea? Thank you for commenting the trigger because I wanted to talk about that. And because I want you to change. I want you to remove the trigger from the upload object and find the solution the same way that we are doing, orchestrating. When you orchestrate, you have full control. You could do two things. So you can do, for example, the sequential thing, and then you just, because let's say that you can do the parallel thing, but if you need to return. So the question is, we are gonna do this, and there's gonna be a response. And let's say that you say response is gonna be one or another, depending on whether the two things has been successful or not. Then you somehow need to wait. And this is in Lambda. This is just, sorry, not in Lambda. In Java, this is just Java programming. How to wait for something that is asynchronous to come back. Future, promises, whatever. There are different techniques. Okay? Yes? Right. So, maybe you can show us your code. Maybe you can show us your code. You take note. There's one technical issue, okay? Which is a bit of a pain. And yes, you are gonna waste time with that. This is one lambda call another lambda, one lambda pass the thing to the other lambda, one lambda wait for the other lambda. This is what I'm gonna say now is what I said before. It has to do for everything, Google, AWS, whatever. What I'm gonna say now is no, it's just AWS. AWS everything is a web service, but the way they pass information to each other is a specific JSON syntax. So we don't invoke, when one Lambda invoke another Lambda, need to sort of pre-process the data and package in the correct JSON format. And the same thing when receiving the response. Just keep that in mind, and that is ugly. Ugly in the sense that it's specific to AWS. If you cannot take that code and put it in a Google function, even if it's Java, because it contains things that are AWS. Okay, right? So maybe you can show us. So what I want is, to navigate your code. Now that we understand the solution, then you navigate your code, and then you are on your own to redraw, refine your own code. The JavaScript first. And then so that we can see the comparison. You also, what's your name? What's your name? What's your name?
In on the top right, top left. In.
Okay. So so that we can compare, I'm gonna switch in between both of you. Okay, so go first you with the JavaScript. You have to make a bit bigger.